We're back on VOCM Backtalk. Linda Swain in with you. We're going to speak now with the Auditor General of Newfoundland and Labrador, Mr. Terry Paddon. He's on line one. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Good. So you have submitted your report on audited financial statements to the House of Assembly.
That's right.
And in it, you, I guess it's a bit of a cautionary note.
Yep.
You say you're a little bit concerned about the sustainability of program spending and our reliance on heavy reliance on oil revenue.
That's right. Right now, the province, about 28 to 30% of revenues, own source revenues, come from the offshore oil sector, and that's a fairly heavy percentage. And it's a fairly volatile revenue source. You're dependent on production levels. You're dependent on price in world markets, so you really have no control over a lot of those variables that go into your revenue source. So that would be a bit of a concern.
And we see that on a yearly basis whenever the new budget is released. We always know that oil revenue plays a huge role in whether or not we're in surplus or not.
That's right. I mean, the one thing you know about a non-renewable resource is that by its very nature, it's going to decline over time. So when you base your expenditure levels on a revenue source that's, one, volatile, and two, naturally going to decline over time, you really need to look at where you're spending your money and how you're spending it.
Are you seeing anything, in going through the numbers where you see potential for another revenue source that could take over where oil revenues is right now?
There's nothing obvious. Obviously, as new discoveries, for argument's sake, in the offshore become developed, that's obviously a potential source of revenue. It's a question then of when it gets developed and what the magnitude of the revenue is going to be from those production or those new discoveries. So that's a bit uncertain at this point in time. So between now and then, you still have to manage your day-to-day affairs with what you have.
And of course, we have a fair bit of spending going on in the province, not the least of which is 67% of our net debt currently going to unfunded pension liabilities. That's a big one that government has already acknowledged needs to be tackled, and they're trying to do that now.
Well, that's right. Your net debt now, about $5.6 billion of our net debt is related to post-retirement benefits for provincial employees. So that's certainly not insignificant by any stretch. And again, there's a fair bit of volatility and uncertainty around the assets that are there to cover the pension benefits when people retire. It's uncertain as to what returns you're going to get on those assets, and on the other side, the one thing that you can't control or have some influence over is how much money you will pay out over time. So, those are the things that you really need to look at and see what you can do to ratchet back or limit the spending there.
Now, the major lending agencies, Standard & Poor's and the like, continue to give us fairly good credit ratings based on how the provincial government is performing thus far when it comes to its finances. Does that reflect accurately the situation, or are there still some issues that need to be addressed?
Well, it's really not my place to step into the rating agency's shoes, but I would say that if you look at our net debt today versus where it was a few years ago, it's certainly better. In relative terms to other provinces in Canada, it's better. So there's no doubt there's been improvement. I guess the issue becomes you've recorded a deficit for the year ended March 31st, 2013. You're looking at a deficit for 2014, another deficit for 2015. So as you continue to record deficits, that's going to erode some of the benefit and the positives that have accrued over the years. So it's just a cautionary tale that at some point in time, the rating agencies may start to look at those ratings.
There was a graphic included in your report today on the province's changing demographics.
Yep.
That some of us in the newsroom were having a look at and were very intrigued by. What does that say to you?
Well, of particular interest to me is the age of the population in Newfoundland and Labrador. And if you go back to 1971, about 10% of our population was over the age of 60. And in 2012, about 25% of our population was over the age of 60. As you move forward, the projections are that could move to 35%. So that's a fairly significant percentage of your population, moving into senior years. And without a doubt, everybody knows that you start to consume more medical services and those sorts of things the older you get. So it's going to put a fairly significant amount of pressure, I think, on the healthcare system, the hospital system, the long-term care system. So sort of from a planning perspective, I mean, that's something really that's going to, I think, affect a lot of the decision-making over the coming years.
So what are the key priorities then from what you can see from the numbers that you have before you?
Well, my focus or my suggestion or my message is that the province needs to sort of manage its expenditure levels, keep control over growth in expenditures, have that growth tied certainly to your expected revenues, but keeping in mind that in the long term those revenues are likely going to decline. So you really need to plan for that decline.
And this report that you released today, that's not the full Auditor General's report that we're accustomed to every year, is it?
Well, generally I release two reports every year. One is the one that I released today, which is just a commentary on the financial statements that have been released by the province this week. My other report, which is on reviews of departments and Crown agencies, which is the one that typically gets more attention, will likely come out sometime next week.
All right, we'll keep our eyes open for that, and we'll be slogging through the details there. I was interested from a journalistic standpoint in the note that you had made concerning misappropriation of funds and possible fraud in a couple of departments. Is that something you're accustomed to seeing in these types of reports?
Well, this is only my second report, so it wasn't there last year, so I guess from that perspective I'm unaccustomed to it. But it really, it's not unusual, I guess, to find these sorts of things happen in an organization the size of the provincial government. My legislated responsibility is that any time I become aware of it, by whatever means, I'm obligated to report to the House and then to report publicly. So that's what I've done. In these particular cases, I think it's fair to say that the government departments have taken the appropriate action when they discovered the issues that happened in their departments.
And in some cases, it's been forwarded to police for investigation.
I think in most cases it has been. So it's really up to the police then to pursue inquiries.
All right. Well, Terry Paddon, no doubt we'll be hearing a lot more from you sometime next week. I do appreciate you taking the time with us.
You're more than welcome.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's Terry Paddon, the Auditor General of Newfoundland and Labrador, coming up with his full Auditor General's report in the next week or so.